Curator of Collections here at the Filson Historical Society, and welcome to Collection Reflections. We're happy that you're joining us today, and we're going to be bringing you some of our favorite items in the collection and some of our most historically significant as well. And when we decided to start this program, I thought of who else but William Clark, one of my favorites and one of our most important portraits in our collection. William Clark, of course, famed from the Lewis and Clark expedition, born in 1770 in Caroline County, Virginia. He came to Jefferson County, to Louisville, in 1785 with his parents, John and Ann Rogers Clark, and his three unmarried sisters. Grew up here on the frontier, joined the militia, joined the Army, and then retired from the Army in 1796, settled on the family farm, Mulberry Hill, which, if you know where George Rogers Clark Park is, there on Poplar Level Road, is where their farm was. And he and George lived there, and in trying to help George, he impoverished himself, and he moved across the river to Point of Rocks, which we know as Clark's Point today, there on the eastern fringe of Clarksville. And so he's living there when in July of 1803, his Army friend, Meriwether Lewis, writes him asking to join the expedition to the Pacific. And hence the famous team of Lewis and Clark come together here at the Falls of the Ohio, meeting in Louisville on October 14th, on October 14th, 1803, pushing off from Clarksville on October 26th. 1803, and returning to Louisville together as a team, that famous partnership, on November 5th, 1806. This portrait is by Joseph H. Bush. We're not quite sure when it was painted. We suspect 1817 perhaps, after Bush returned from studying under Thomas Sully in Philadelphia. Sully, one of the most famous portrait painters of the day. It's finely executed. Its style is such that it's too refined to probably have been painted by Bush before his sojourn to Philadelphia. So 1813, a little bit of speculation, more likely 1817 or maybe even a little later, 1820, 1821 perhaps, something like that. But it's a very fine portrait. It descended in the Clark family and was given to us by R.C. Ballard Thruston, our longtime president and benefactor. Now, I mentioned Meriwether Lewis, his partner in discovery, the famous Lewis and Clark expedition. We're very fortunate here at the Filson to have 6 expedition letters written by William Clark to his brother Jonathan Clark, who also is living here in Louisville, near where Bellarmine University is today. And this is a letter written by William from Fort Mandan, April of 1805, 1,600 miles up the Missouri. It's a wonderful 4-page letter. This is the 4th page here, and then here you can see the interior pages. And what William is, he's basically a good tourist, and he knows that family and friends back home want souvenirs. And so what's he do? He boxes up over 30 artifacts that he's collected, natural history, Native American artifacts, in that first year up the Missouri in 1804 and over the winter of 04 to 05. And he's sending them home on the keel boat that goes down to St. Louis and then eventually reaches Louisville. And from there, Jonathan sends them out. And one of those items, at first we thought perhaps, were one of the bighorn sheep horns he lists in this letter. But he says those are all small. And then he ends the letter by saying, which I think is wonderful, it shows that they're kind of stepping off into the true unknown. That he says, "When I shall see you again is uncertain. I fear not sooner than next July a year. The country before me is extensive and unexplored." And it was. They were truly stepping off. They get back to St. Louis September 23rd, 1806. And of course, they've been collecting things since then. They have boxes and boxes of things. And before they discharge them in and head over cross country, we believe, to Louisville again, to the falls, he sends a number of boxes over for the family. And one of those items, he sends a number of bighorn sheep horns. And one of these was given to his sister Fanny. And it descended in her family until R.C. Ballard Thruston gave it to the Filson in 1929. It's one of the few verified animal artifacts from the expedition. It's a large horn. In counting the growth rings, there's 8 growth rings, and so we assume that the animal is approximately 9 years old when he lost this horn. And why it survived? Perhaps it had a use. So many of the artifacts, in fact, most of the artifacts from the expedition were lost. They sunk, they were lost to fire, the provenance broke down, they didn't know what they were. This horn survived, perhaps, if you notice this nice little flat area here, perhaps it survived because the family tradition is that it was used as a doorstop. And so it had a use. And thankfully, the family realized, and R.C. Ballard Thruston really realized, that this was an incredibly priceless historical artifact. And so he saved it and presented it to the Filson, and it's truly one of our treasures. So, William Clark, the Lewis and Clark expedition, some of our artifacts, letters, the horn, the portrait, all come together. And that's one of the things that help us tell these significant stories of Kentucky and the Ohio Valley. Now, in a future reflection, I've mentioned Meriwether Lewis. We're going to bring William Clark, Meriwether Lewis, and a mutual friend of theirs who also lived in Louisville together. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us again.